Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
All right, my friend, it is Saturday morning. That means it's time for Films and Stuff podcast. This week, first we're going to focus on our favorite, Apple TV Pluses for All Mankind.
Oh, yeah.
And Pete, I think you're going to give us a bonus summary season finale of Ms. Marvel.
That's right. And I do think it's actually not just the season finale, but perhaps the series finale. I don't think they're going to do a second series.
We'll find out. Okay. Should we dive into For All Mankind?
Let's do it.
So this is season 3, episode 6, New Eden. Sounds like the Garden of Eden. Shall we summarize saying that NASA, with the Russians, has landed on Mars.
Yeah.
Their engines apparently have been damaged in the process of doing so. So we are now down 2 spacecraft. We only have Helios.
Yeah, but it kind of is nice because it kind of validated Ed's decision to abort at the last minute, yeah?
That's true. I have to say, and I thought that he and Danielle had a very healthy, respectful relationship.
Yes.
And that was heartwarming. I mean, they had the Hi Bob inside joke. I mean, they've been through some tough stuff together. And it was nice that, he said, hey, it looks like, we've got to be your savior. And she's like, yeah, but we were first. And I bet that you wish that was you. And he said, yeah, in a heartbeat, I'd trade places with you. So they both kind of had some points to score against each other there.
Of course. Continuing
on, so NASA, their engines are damaged, so they can't use their spacecraft anymore, Sojourner. And their HAB apparently has some problems as well. They have limited water. There is a high amount of CO2, carbon dioxide in the air.
The heat, right? It was too hot in there all the time.
And it
some
was very
climate
hot.
Control issues, yeah.
Yeah. So add those physical discomforts with the fact that there's obviously a lot of emotional drama and a little bit of strife with the Russian cosmonauts that they're housing. It makes for kind of a combustible situation.
Yeah. I gotta say, by the way, it's not panning out the way I was hoping it would.
I agree.
Drama is not, for a show that's obviously fictional and for an alternate history, even this is a step too far. Because it seems very much like the Russians are pushing the Americans around there. For a crew that was basically dead in the water in space, for a crew that was basically nowhere without NASA, all of a sudden the Russians are showing a lot of nerve and
They're very mouthy, yeah?
Very mouthy, very non-appreciative, and I don't know how much of that is because they know they've got the NASA director over a barrel or not. And for me personally, I don't think that's something that a Russian astronaut or cosmonaut would be told. Like even the director, I don't think they would know about the espionage efforts that's going on at the headquarters. So if you discount that knowledge, right, which I think is reasonable, I think they're being like real jerks up there. And that's fine. If you're being a jerk, you're being a jerk. But then to see that the Americans aren't doing anything by way of, pushing back, there's absolutely no consequence for the Russians. And it's kind of now chafing in that sense. It's not satisfying to watch.
I have to say, I agree with you. And the main reason I agree with you is that seems like the obvious storyline. And I think we've come to expect so much for the show or we've started to create so much for the show. Yeah. There's so many other interesting dramas that they could have on Mars. This petty little back and forth, like, hey, don't give orders to my man. Okay, fine. Can you please tell your guy to do this? Of course I will. Like,
ridiculous.
It just seems like it's a waste of an opportunity. You've got, we're going to talk about this, so we're probably going to go at least an hour. So buckle in,
Strap in,
listeners.
guys.
Strap in, listeners. There's so many interesting dramas, storylines you could have here. Why are they focusing on like the lowest common denominator and this just petty roommate bickering? You know, that's what's disappointing to me.
And what's hilarious is that in season 2, we saw the Russians in space who were just like, listen, we're in space. The concept of America, the concept of Russia, the concept of countries and nationalities kind of goes out the window.
Yeah.
Because at this point, it really does become literally a situation of humanity. Yeah. And so for these Russian jackasses to sit there on the station and be real dickwads, you know, pardon my French, but they're being real jerks, right? And Danny, who really puts up with nothing and who was someone who was, you know, held hostage by the Russians in last season. Yeah. It seems so strange that she all of a sudden seems to acquiesce at every moment. It's like she's becoming like this diplomat where she should be like, listen, we are astronauts first. Yeah. We're Americans second. Right now, you need to put all that petty nonsense behind you. And if you're not ready to do that, then take a hike. Here's a spare tank of oxygen. Go find your own spaceship on Mars. And either put up or shut up. I mean, this is, you know, we can't keep going in circles like this. And it just seems so frustrating that they're not, because as you rightly said, this is the most basic and easy storyline that For All Mankind could have covered.
And it also seems like the least realistic as well, which is, I mean, astronauts and cosmonauts are first and foremost like scientists, right?
Exactly.
They should be the most agnostic about like country and politics and things. They're all on Mars. You'd think that they'd just be like so thrilled, you know, and they'd have so much to do. There'd be so many like challenges that they'd really like kind of, this would not be, yes, there may be kind of friction. It's a new living environment. There's issues, of course, but you'd think that those things would be secondary to kind of like the practical things, which is, hey, like, it's super hot in here. We've got to ration water. You know, there's a lot of CO2, right? All these, you know, we've only got one hab now. Like, you think that kind of these life and death things would be their primary focus.
And I would have understood if this were on Helios, for example, because remember they made a point. They were like, well, we can send poets up here. And Ed was the one who said, no, we're sending astronauts and scientists. Yeah. We're not sending, you know, military men. We're not sending poets. We need people who can actually help us. And I understand. Yeah. So I would have understood that concept more because you have a larger, maybe more diverse skill set on Helios. But, you know, at the end of the day, the NASA crew is all a bunch of scientists and Air Force men and women who are just there to kind of set up a hab, to set up this mission. They're there for a mission. They're not there to, obviously they are, because, you know, I'm taking a very idealistic view on this. Obviously there's some nationality and some pride involved. But again, when you're literally millions of miles away from Earth, for me, the bickering about is Russia first, is America first, kind of goes out the window when you're just like, listen, I'm struggling with the fact that it's like 60 degrees Celsius inside our thermal units. We have no water. The water we were supposed to find is a lot smaller than we had anticipated. I'm worried about surviving to tomorrow. I'm not worried about the legacy of what this mission means at the moment.
Yeah. Let me say one thing and I'll change the subject if you don't mind.
Please.
This is why, to be honest, Helios was probably right in not going to rescue the Russians, and probably why NASA was wrong in going to rescue them, which is this is what happens, right? It sounds good, like, hey, we've got to do this for humanitarian reasons. And then once you save them and everyone gets on board, then you start having kind of these, you know, issues crop up and there's no way to kind of walk them back, you know? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, anyway. All right. So the change of topic is, although it's similar, what do you think of Kelly and her now apparently open romantic relationship with her counterpart from the Russian side.
I mean, and
so it's so trite though, right?
No disrespect to either actor, but they're both such inconsequential characters at this stage that who cares? And I didn't see where it came from. It didn't seem like a natural build-up.
No.
There could be a case of, where I'm a single woman in space, you're a single man in space, we have no options, so let's hook up. Maybe, it just seems a bit contrived.
It's too abrupt.
How do we add a little bit of sex in space?
Yeah, it's really disappointing. I feel like I agree. It's absolutely unnecessary. I mean, especially from the perspective of Kelly, who's worked so hard, overcome such odds, right? Making her mother proud. Her father's up there. She fought tooth and nail for this mission, and now like just out of nowhere, like she's starting to have like these dalliances in the botanical garden room or something.
Oh, I remember it was called the swamp or whatever.
The swamp. I mean, It just seems like beyond like risk. It's not like they've been working elbow to elbow for like a year and the attraction's been like brewing. It just like, it happened like overnight. It's really, I think, kind of like a pathetic attempt to kind of like manufacture something. And there's so much going on that I don't understand why they have to do this. I think it would be better for them to not get along, and not trust each other and to withhold research from each other. And I think it would be better the other way around. So I feel like this is just intentionally
shoehorned in for the sake of shoehorning it in. And
well said.
If they had perhaps done a situation where, we see a time jump of a month or 2 months and they're kind of introduced as a couple, that's fine. Because then you're just like, okay, in 2 months, these guys obviously got close and that's fine. But, as far as we, the viewers, are concerned, it's literally been, a week since they met, they landed, and all of a sudden they're an item now and they've hooked up, which, again, I'm not saying is impossible. I'm just saying, why? What is the payoff for something like this? Is there a payoff? And if there isn't, I'm sorry, but like in a show that's got so many opportunities for other kind of dramatic payoffs, this is a waste of screen time.
Do you think Kelly's going to get pregnant? I'm gonna put my marker in, and I'm gonna say Kelly gets pregnant on Mars. It
makes a hell of a it makes a hell of a show, right? Yeah. To say that becomes like the first American / Russian baby born on the planet, first Martian. So then everyone is just like, wait a minute. Yep. Is he American? Is the baby American? Is the baby Russian? And it becomes another battlefield.
Yeah.
Potentially. I don't dislike that thought process if that's what they're going for. But again, that's a payoff to be seen.
Mm-hmm. So another social issue that's created drama is the NASA astronaut gives an interview and comes out of the closet,
whatever his name was,
and discloses that he's homosexual, he's gay.
Yeah. What did you think of this reveal?
I understand there's a lot of it makes sense kind of with the social timeline that For All Mankind tries to honor, right? Because this would have been in an alternate universe. This would have been during the Clinton administration.
Yep.
And Don't Ask, Don't Tell did come into, I guess, it started then, right?
Yeah.
Or at least as far as I can recall. I mean, that was a little bit before my time, but that's as far as I can recall. So that makes sense from a historical perspective. So I give some good credit in terms of weaving that into a storyline in a believable way. I have to say, I probably like that a little bit more than the Kelly romance because only it brings in Ellen and Ellen's husband, right? Like you see the situation it puts them in, And at the end of this episode, we really see where this is going. But if it just would have been a standalone, issue within the episode, I would have said, like, look, this is not needed. It's not necessary. It didn't really add anything. Now it created some drama. No one really trusts him on the Hab. It's gonna create all this stuff. The fact that it brings in Ellen and her husband, I think we see where this is going, which is eventually someone's gonna out, Ellen's husband, and it's gonna become a huge political scandal for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. To be honest, I was a little annoyed when it happened because I'm very conflicted about this. My initial gut reaction was, hey, dude, you're an Air Force pilot. You're here on a mission to Mars.
Yeah.
This is not the first place, or this is not the time or the place for you to kind of blow up the mission of Mars, because all of a sudden no one is talking about Mars anymore. No one is talking about this mission. Yeah.
As Danielle said, he put himself first, right?
Yeah. So on one hand, that's immediately I sided and I agreed with that. And, it was further complicated by the fact that, he's black and he's trying to allude to her that you don't understand. And she's like, excuse me, I'm black. Yeah. I do understand. We've had we've had just as many problems and we've had to overcome them. So on one hand, I was in the, you should have just kept your mouth shut. There are bigger and better things that you could be doing. That was my first instinct. But my second instinct, when it marinated with me, it sat with me overnight. I was like, what better stage is there though? Because this guarantees that it's going to be national news for everyone, because everyone on the planet is basically watching this, right? Yeah. So on the other hand, I was like, okay, I kind of understand the reasoning or the rationale at least behind it. I'm still in two minds. I, like you, agree that ultimately what this is going to do is shift focus back onto Ellen and her husband. And I think
they're screwed. I think they're screwed, right?
Yeah, I think based on that guy is going to basically blackmail what's his face, right? The husband, Nate Cordry's character.
Yeah,
she's going to have to they're either going to have to cover it up more, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah,
I think what's going to happen is that someone's going to do some deep digging and deep diving and perhaps come up with Pam. And I think there are going to be some uncomfortable questions asked. And this kind of sets them up for like a mutiny with the vice president, who's like this ultra hardcore Christian conservative.
It could be impeachment. If you're going to look at parallels of the Clinton administration, then you get to impeachment, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know what the grounds are, but something in terms of, lying, I guess.
There could be, there could certainly be impeachment. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it could be a case like that. And I think if that's the case, then that, as not clumsy, but as annoying as this storyline may have been with Will, because again, it creates artificial tension on the spacecraft in Mars. Because they're like, well, I don't want to bunk with a gay guy. I'm worried about getting HIV from, we're sharing rations. When you're really stressed out about the fact that you don't have enough water for the entire mission, do you need this added element of I'm bunking with a gay guy? And of course, we have the hindsight of being in 2022. We know more about HIV. We understand, homophobia, all these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And this is still supposed to be an alternate history version of the 90s. We're not a million miles away from that in terms of timeline. And, we're also talking about people going into space. So, it's a little bit more enlightened per se. I don't know. It just seems like a superfluous, another, match that could be setting off a tinderbox that's there on Mars.
Did you think that Ellen was going to come out and make a statement in support of him?
I didn't think so.
Oh, really?
I didn't see that happening.
Oh, I was kind of assuming that, her husband, was taking more of a hard stance, right? And then he suggested kind of the don't ask, don't tell. I kind of assumed that she was going to come out and like have this change of heart on camera, like mid-interview and like say,
like go off script.
Yeah, basically go off script and say, he's brave and all people are the same and we're proud of him and blah, 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 blah. We accept everybody. And, this isn't the time to be finding different. I thought she was going to say this really motivational, wonderful thing and like support him,
So at most, I thought she might pull like what Jodie Foster did in one of her acceptance speeches as an award where she kind of confirms that she's gay, but not really. Like you'd have to really read between the lines.
Yeah.
But I think that reveal that you're talking about, I think that's coming for the end of the episode, end of the season. I do expect it to come.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen now. I think it's going to come more towards the let's gear up for re-election cycle. And I think that's when it's going to come. And I think she's going to face a revolt from within her own party where her vice president is going to then run against her.
Yeah.
That's my feeling. I think that because in every episode so far we've seen, she has been like that president who's like the compromising type, who's level-headed. And even this, when he suggests, let's talk about, why don't we just not ask the question? She's like, oh, this is perfect. It's not far enough for the Republicans or not far enough for the Democrats and a bridge too far for the Republicans. Yeah. So it's like, the perfect compromise.
Yeah.
So I do see that happening, but I don't see that happen. I think what's going to happen, for example, is when her husband starts getting blackmailed or when he gets called out for it and maybe Pam comes back into play. I think that's when she has to really sit down, do some soul searching and be like, I'm not ready to throw this guy under the bus. I'm not ready to throw Pam under the bus. And she's either going to come out or she's going to come out and have this very emotional speech that's going to sway the voters to her side.
Or she's just going to cut on, be like, come on, like Pam, like, I don't even know this lady. She's crazy, like she was a bartender.
Or she goes hard
She was once drunk and she kissed me and like, I told her, please, like, stay away. And, my husband, like, oh my God, like I had no idea. This is such a shock to me. I'm the victim. She could also, I don't think it's likely, but she could also just develop, this really survival instinct and basically kind of throw everyone under the bus and say, look, I'm gonna save myself.
Yeah, I don't see it either, but yes, it would be an interesting twist. Yeah. And also, I mean, like a small part of me after that last scene plays out where this guy basically implies that he's going to implicate her husband as being gay or at least out him.
Yeah.
I also think that like a small part of me, and this is very cynical, but like, in politics, it's really hard without damning proof to accuse a politician of anything and not suffer any consequences, especially not the president. I mean, I can't help but imagine the kind of stuff that presidents have covered up. And they're not going to be very careful about, they're going to be very careful about how they cover it up, which means they're going to be very brutal. Yeah. I'm not saying that this is where the show is going, but this is very much like the House of Cards element of it, which is that guy in the House of Cards or maybe the real world would be dead before he knew it.
I agree.
Right? Just for thinking that.
Yeah. True.
So.
True.
Anyway, so that's I think for future episodes for it to play out in.
We've got another personal drama unfolding, and that is Danny, who is getting more and more unhinged as we go on. He's on the pills
now.
He's abusing painkillers. He's listening to all of Ed's messages. It doesn't seem like he's deleting them, but he's listening to them. Like he's snapping at Ed. And then we hear, the big reveal, right? Ed,
is worried, right?
Candid to Karen that, he's worried about Danny. Maybe Danny wasn't the right choice. He can't handle it just like Gordo couldn't handle it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a double whammy. It's a slam on Danny and it's a slam on his dad.
Yeah. So this is obviously heading to some type of confrontation. And of course, I feel like this is going to really end badly for Ed.
Yeah, I thought about it too. I was like, I don't... And God, I hope I'm wrong. But I don't see him making it through the end of the season.
Who?
Ed.
Making it? Like, you don't think he's going to live?
I don't see.
You think Danny's going to kill him?
I think I don't know if he's going to kill him, but I think there's going to come to a situation where they're kind of set. Because the thing is that no matter whatever is happening, every episode, Ed is turning to be like the guy that you really relate to and that you really like. Because even though he's a gruff exterior through these like video calls to Karen, he's just like, yeah, I really like Ed. He's emotional. They're really setting him up to fall.
I have to say, you deserve a lot of credit for calling it first, which is to suggest Danny's going to kill Ed. It's on the table now, right? It's really... Yeah. By the way, that's a way better storyline than the Russian stuff and then Kelly stuff.
Oh, totally. Totally. If you want interpersonal drama, this, I think, of the three, this is the best one. Yeah.
Dan, I was also wondering for a moment when Danny went into kind of first of all, Helios obviously has no policies or procedures,
Oh, yeah. Totally
if they're not software related. But when Danny went into the pharmacy and basically just helped himself to whatever he needed, I thought that he was going to see whatever Ed is taking and be like, what is this for? Ed's
great
got
callback. Yeah.
I was thinking Ed has it's not clear what he's got, but like
MS
let's say he
or something.
Something exactly, like West Wing style.
Yeah.
And Danny's gonna be like, what is this medication for? Figure it out. And I just thought of this now, but I was thinking like maybe Danny would like switch his meds.
Switch the pills.
Yes.
Exactly.
Accidental death. Ed's out of the way. Danny's elevated to
or
commander.
Poisons him. Exactly.
Yeah. And then Danny, in his mind, is free to pursue Karen, right?
Oh, God. Karen.
Maybe he even says, Karen, you got to come up here for the funeral. We'll meet in the space station. I got a big 1-bedroom for us. Like,
what a jerk.
Yeah.
Karen. And then, speaking of Karen, by the way, after she swears off Helios, all of a sudden she's back and she's now like not negotiating. She's brokering trades with the Russian government. Come on, man, that's too much. In a scenario where Karen's already done too much, this is so crazy. I do, however, like the fact that you've got Helios and Dev now striking a deal with the Russians, which I think comes up to the last major point of this episode, right? Because the Russians have found a source of water, liquid water. It's a huge reservoir. They don't want to share that information with NASA. Again, this is problematic for a lot of reasons. They decide to hire Helios in exchange for money and for a share of the reservoir. I like that because it kind of gets Dev a little bit out of the hole with his shareholders, right? Because you start off with seeing Dev getting chewed out for the company being not profitable.
Yeah.
And B, it also bails out the Helios crew members on the Mars who are just like, listen, we need to find water. What it does do is it causes significant issues in NASA, which, and all credit to Alita, she basically tells Margot to shove it, and she informs Danielle, listen, I don't know what's going on with you, Margot, but you have lost your mind if we're not going to tell the people up there. And she informs Danielle. It's this great scene in that party where all three crew members are partying together. And then you find out, she drops the pin. Ed isn't allowed to say anything. Danielle is obviously super pissed off at all of them, but I don't know.
So let's go back to that because I agree. All that is a very, very good storyline. When we see Karen negotiating with the Russians, I feel like we're meant to think that Karen is this hard-ass negotiator.
Yeah.
She negotiated 50. what leverage do the Russians have?
I was just about to say.
They've got no equipment, no vehicle.
Nothing.
If I were Helios, I'd be like, I'll take 90%.
Yeah.
Take 0 and like it.
Yeah.
You know?
Or
you found it. We can find it ourselves, right?
$1 for every gallon of water you pull out of there for the rest of this. I don't care.
Yeah. Like, it cannot be that if you found it, we know it's there.
We can too.
We'll find it ourselves.
Yeah.
And we'll give you 0.
Yeah. And she offers them 50%. It's like, okay, maybe you're not as cutthroat as
and the lady's
everyone
laughing
thinks
like, ha, ha, ha. I mean, they have no equipment. 0 equipment. Even if Russia goes, yeah, we'll strike a deal with the U.S. Go ahead. They have no vehicle either.
Yeah.
Then we can.
They're struggling with their HAB at the moment.
You'll still come back to us, and then it will still be 50, and you'll have 25 with NASA, and NASA will have 25. Either way, we get our 50. I think it's absolutely a terrible, terrible bargain. We're meant to think, oh, Karen, you're so tough. Like,
yeah. But I think this is also because you and I come from the school of hard knocks in terms of negotiations, right?
Yeah.
With all the things that we've done. But I'm 100% with you.
Yeah.
First, not the savviest of deals.
No.
Right? And by the way, like you just know that someone is backstabbing someone. Whether it's Helios backstabbing Russia or Russia doing it to Helios, it's bound to happen.
It has to be Helios though, right? Because Russia, again, they don't have any
infrastructure.
They have literally no equipment. Yeah. They have a few boxes, whatever they've taken off their shuttle, if anything, right? Yeah. Nothing.
All the HABs, all that kind of stuff belong to America. Yeah. Which means that anything that America does by default has to be shared with the Russians.
I agree. So I feel like Helios is if anyone's going to backstab, it's probably going to be Helios.
Right, which then makes, again, an interesting dynamic where then the Russians have to come clean with the Americans. Yeah. And then it becomes like a truly joint effort. Yeah. And then the Americans go, well, you know what? Your commander up there is no longer commander. It's now Danielle who's running the show. Or if they want to make it spicy, they make him the commander and she has to be here second. Yeah. And it has to be a truly international mission against Helios. That's the only way it can work.
And you're getting to the point, which is, I agree with you and I agree with Alita. Why are the Russians still walking all over the place at mission control at wherever? Kennedy's Cape Canaveral or Johnson Space Center, whatever. Exactly. Right? Like, why? They have nothing else to offer. Okay, yes, there was a joint rescue mission. Thanks very much. Now it's our mission, right? We'll give you updates. Like,
sit in your rooms. You're basically grounded until Russia can figure out what to do with you.
It's totally nonsense. It's totally nonsense. And now we're going to get into Margot. And this means you and I are going to go supersonic, right? Like,
oh my God. Like, first of all, like, it should have been a red flag. What I'm surprised by is that Alita hasn't gone over Margot's head. Yeah. 1. 2, like, it should have been maybe not a red flag, but it should have been at least a yellow flag to, we finally get to see the head of the military, right? Or the armed forces. He was there in season 2 and he said, we can do an extraction of Sergei's family, but why? Oh, he wants to defect? But why? There's got to be...
And then she bribes him? Also a violation of federal law. Clearly, right?
I mean,
we
can help you with your F-22 program,
right?
Or something. But it's just... There's a lot of very basic red flags that come up. And of course, you and I are sitting here again as armchair quarterbacks. We've seen this. We understand it. But anyone at that level, I feel their first instinct is to always ask why.
I agree. Like you're
asking me to send a group of armed commandos into Russia to pick up the family member of this guy who wants to defect. Why does he want to defect, and why now?
And who is he? Oh, well, he'll really help the the program. Like,
but he's not even theoretically the head of the command anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, if he's that important, just think of the political shitstorm it's going to kick up if that guy, one, not only defects, but his family is forcibly extracted by U.S. military. That's an act of war.
Yep.
Right? Like, I agree. Like, I would be like, hold your horses, Margot. What's going on here? Yeah.
And tell me everything.
Yes.
No one's getting in trouble, but we need to know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. It's a lot of small red flags. And I feel like the moment the Russians come into that space center, security should be massively heightened on the American side, right? Like, everyone should be worried everywhere. There should be armed guards everywhere. There should be listening devices everywhere.
I agree.
Even in this alternate reality, it just seems too easy for the Russians to kind of storm in everywhere.
I agree. This is all wrong. And for me, it starts with Margot, and I cannot get over the fact it's like the opulence. She just like sits and takes meetings at her grand piano with a brandy snifter. Like, what is going on? No one is, I mean, Ellen, where's Ellen, right? No one is exercising any control over NASA. Ugh, it's really disgusting to me. And then when Sergei comes in her office, then that whole thing was really a mystery to me.
It was mystery, but it did answer or potentially answer one of the questions we had a couple episodes ago, which was, do you think that he's playing the long game? Is he in on this with the Russians? Is he against? And he's the one who basically shows her the coordinates for the aquifer of liquid water. Fine. But is this a double bluff? I mean, I'm still skeptical. And like, if this were last season, I would have been all in on him being a good guy because it felt genuine. The relationship between the two of them felt genuine.
Yeah.
But no longer. Now that the bribery element's in there, I'm very skeptical.
All right, so let's go through the scene, because I think this is one of the pivotal scenes that does leave, one, a lot of mysteries, and two, it leaves a lot of different directions that it could go, right? Mm-hmm. So when Sergei was in there, and then he obviously intentionally knocks over her glass. And of course, she runs out to get napkins, right? He's so smart. I mean, he didn't think she was going to have napkins there. Fine. I thought he was planting a listening device in her cabinet. That was my first thought, because he kind of reached into his pocket, and I thought he was planting a listening device. And maybe he still did. But that was my first inclination. And then when he wrote this thing on the record, more on that in a minute, then I was like, he's trying to warn her, like, be careful, they're listening, or don't save my family, they're in danger, something. I thought he was actually trying to like give her a warning, but it was a warning to kind of protect himself.
Yeah.
And then I see this formula on the record, and my questions are, why not just write H2O? I don't know what this big formula was all about, right? It wasn't like coordinates. It's like an algorithm.
It was an integral series, and I imagine that it was just to find it, that the answer to that formula equation led to the coordinates. Which, I mean, if you're going through all of that, why not just leave the coordinates?
Or just say it to her. I mean, there's got to be a listening device, right? Why wouldn't he say it to her?
Yeah,
or write it on a piece of paper? Why so cryptic? It just seemed like unnecessary drama,
It seemed very James Bondish in a show that's not James Bondish.
And unnecessarily, right?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't that, it wasn't like they were, for example, like at lunch and he was being watched and he's like, oh, like, let me help you solve this formula, right? And he did this like algorithm that didn't make sense, but she saw what he was doing, right? But his handlers couldn't have picked it up. Like, no one was really watching him. No one was really listening to him. And then tell me your take on this. is he trying to help Margot out of love? Is he trying to give her something so that she absolutely saves him and his family? Is he doing something very calculated because he doesn't want Helios to take 50%? And he figures, hey, if NASA knows, maybe they'll, even though they have no equipment,
this a three-way race.
Yeah, maybe they'll give us a better deal.
Yeah, maybe. I again, all very valid questions. But I think what's really interesting that you said is, why was he being so quiet? Why was he doing all this shenanigans instead of just telling her?
Yeah.
Maybe he knows there's a listening device already planted by the Russians in her office.
All the more reason. Yes.
In which case, if he's really the good guy, why not also make that as a part of the warning? When he writes this formula down on the record, why can't he say, there's a recording device in your room? Or, speak in code only. Right? So it could very well be that there already is one and that he's playing both sides.
Yeah. The whole thing, that whole scene just, I think, demonstrates what's wrong at NASA and a show that's usually so realistic. Like, he just comes into her office, hey, I've got a request from our team. I mean, even though we owe you everything, you owe us nothing. Here's a written request that I'm hand delivering to please take some aerial photographs. And she's like, what is this about? The secret mission that we're not included in, even though,
that's the other thing is the moment NASA learned about this joint mission with Helios, they should have just been like, pack your bags,
you guys go live with
walk
them.
over and live with Helios. We're not going to entertain you. What the hell are you doing? You can't live in our place rent free. It's like, it's like if you having a live-in girlfriend who's going on a date with somebody else.
Yes.
What are you doing? You can't have it both ways.
Have a nice night, sweetheart. Don't wake me when you get back.
It's a bunch of nonsense. It's such a bunch of nonsense because that's probably, you know what? I think that's what it is. That's the way I see it is, for anyone who maybe doesn't understand the dynamic, NASA's got a live-in girlfriend with the Russians, and the Russians have their, mistress in Helios.
I blame one person only, Margot. This never would have happened if Molly were there.
Oh, no way, no how. Molly is way too, not only was she ex-military, she was an Air Force pilot herself. So she understands protocol. She understands security. She was never one of those people who was socially awkward or sheltered. She understood, she was more, Margot may be more book smart than she is street smart. Molly was all about street smart. So she could see a coup coming a mile away. No disrespect to the fact that she's blind now, but still. And she would have seen that coming. And even if she were put in such a situation through whatever means, she wouldn't have put up with shit. She would have kicked them to the curb immediately.
I agree. I'm laughing. You said she'd see this from a mile away. No offense, because she's blind now, but I agree. I mean, Margot is really, really Margot and Danny are really my most disliked people on the show.
Yeah. And we had one more, Karen too.
No, Karen's one of my favorites. Yeah?
Yeah, but I think universally, I think we can both agree that Margot and Danny have got to go. Or not got to go, but there needs to be... in a show like this, ultimately, I think one of the problems I'm having is no one is facing any consequences for any bad behavior. Yeah. Which is normally okay if you get to see that there are consequences eventually, but here there are no consequences. The Russians are acting like jerks. Everyone's tolerating. Yeah. Danny's acting like a jerk. Everyone's tolerating. It's at some point it has to come to a head, and when it does, you'd want to see the right person get punished, but I just don't see it. I still somehow think that Ed's going to be the one who kicks it. Yeah. Either
which
dies.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, everybody from that generation, their arc has ended tragically. From Deke to
But
Gordo.
it's also, but as you rightly said, it's about that generation. I think that if there's 7 seasons of this show and we're in season 3, you can't have a 70-year-old or 80-year-old Ed on Mars. It's not compelling to watch.
Yeah.
So they have to transition these guys out. And the way they've done it so far has been death or some terrible disease or affliction like the glaucoma that leads to blindness for Molly. Yeah. Everyone in that first generation of space heroes has kind of gone out unceremoniously. That's
true, but that makes me reiterate my prior criticism, which I think you agreed with me on, that we're not introducing characters fast enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The Russians are not main characters, and they're not compelling characters so far.
They're not even the main antagonists as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. In Helios, we only know Dev.
Yeah.
And we know Karen, right?
And Bill, but that's it. Space Command Bill.
But Bill wasn't an even face shot in this prior episode.
That's true.
Right? I mean, Bill is nothing. In NASA, we've got Margot.
Alita and Margot.
And Margot is on borrowed time somehow. One way or another,
definitely.
She's on borrowed time, right? Sergei is Russian. He's not compelling at all, right?
Yeah.
In space, we kind of met some people without names on the Helios team. And we know Danny. And NASA, we've got Danielle, we've got Kelly, and the homophobe. That's it. There's not enough characters. We lost Molly. We lost Molly's husband. They didn't appear at all in the last episode. We needed to.
No, we saw Molly's husband, but that's when he gives Karen the pep talk to go back. But that's it.
Yeah. So we need. I mean, this is the lost opportunity that Helios team should have 5 handsome, sexy, young, up-and-coming astronauts, right? We kind of met Will, right, who came out of the closet. And also Ellen and her husband probably on borrowed time, right? So...
Yeah. Husband for sure, Ellen to be determined.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, it's a lost opportunity that Helios, you should have been testing now 5 people. 3 very pretty women, 3 very handsome dudes, or maybe not even handsome, just like normal people. Give them better roles, have them involved, nothing. In this last episode, we didn't see any other person from Helios.
That's why I thought a time jump would have been better. Yeah. If you saw a flash forward of another 2 years and all of a sudden Russia's got a second ship on Mars.
Yeah.
NASA sent a second spaceship and replenished their supplies, replenished their staff. And Helios has now built a mini town almost.
Yeah.
Right? I think that would have been far more compelling. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Yeah. I like this Apollo 13-esque. We've gotten here, but there's a shed load of problems that we need to fix. But then those problems are also kind of just swept under the rug and addressed. Oh, we are out of CO2 scrubbers. That's okay. Ed's walking over. He's got a bunch with him as spares.
He's got Thanksgiving dinner, a bottle of vodka, and all these extra scrubbers, right?
Yeah. And he just kind of shows up and he kind of saves them, or at least staves off impending doom. It's a bit, that's what to the listeners, I messaged Ethan yesterday or maybe even this morning before we started recording. And I just felt like this episode, while it wasn't bad by any means, and there were certainly moments that were not exciting, but there were certainly moments that drove the potential of the plot forward, I feel like it's losing a little bit of its charm because the setups for the future are a bit slow. And again, as Ethan has rightly pointed out for multiple episodes now, we haven't seen enough of other people.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see what the Ed and Danny dynamic continues, but it's going at such a glacial pace that you need to fill up screen time with other more compelling stories. And frankly speaking, Kelly and her dalliance with this Russian guy aren't doing it for me.
Yeah.
And neither is the Margot dalliance, because again, that's too slow. And finally, the last thing, which I do think is actually exciting, and I'm hoping to see more on in the next episode, is the new Ellen and the potential outing of her sexuality.
But you know what? You've just mentioned 3 or 4 different plot streams, right? Not a single one of them has anything to do with space.
Oh yeah, exactly.
None. Now we are a Cleveland, Ohio based American drama.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all it is.
That's right. Replace Mars with moving to Cincinnati.
Yes.
Or Cleveland. Yep, that's exactly right.
That's not what, to be honest, that's not what we signed up for, right? That's why what you said and what we said, please put a marker here as well. Last episode, when they came off Sojourner, they should have found that there was a third country, a fourth competitor that had already landed and set up a colony or something. And then we should have had the flash forward. Yep. That was the missed opportunity.
That would have been excellent because the problem is that, again, I like the fact that they're having problems setting up their hab, but they're not talking about it. They're not showing us anything. Yeah. I love that in season 2 where you see Ed go through the humdrum routine of going into that pit, cutting out a piece of rock, analyzing it. And then all of a sudden, as he comes up, he sees a bunch of Russians coming towards that same pit. Yeah. That was dramatic. That was awesome. We're seeing none of that here. Can you imagine how awesome it would be if Helios and Russia get to the water pit, the aquifer, and all of a sudden they see there's already a small well there that's already been set up with the Korean flag. Yeah. How exciting would that be? But they haven't set any of that up. And if they do that now, then the question would be like, you've done aerial photographs. How have you not noticed this?
Yeah. It's too abrupt.
We are being critical. I will acknowledge that. Ethan and I are being very critical, but again,
we are critics. That's the job.
This is how good the show is, to be honest. Yeah. We're being extra critical also because we like this show. I'm on Team Ed. Yeah. I'm on Team Kick Margot Out.
I'm on Team Karen. Karen all the way.
Karen can go kick rocks for all I care. But she's, this show, you're right. This show has become or is in serious danger of no longer being a space drama and just being a regular relationship drama, which is, I mean, okay, it's great, but it's not what we signed up for. Yeah. No. It's absolutely not. I could go back and watch reruns of Melrose Place if that's what I wanted.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, so let's see where we go from here. But I think the next episode is really kind of a critical episode. Now. Yeah? Yeah, it's really pivotal to kind of see where we're going from here.
Because I think the next episode is episode number 8. Is that correct? Or is it 7?
7.
Yeah. So that means that, and that's perfect because 7 should be the pivotal episode that sets up 8, 9, and 10. And, the All Mankind formula has always been that the end of the season ends up nicely wrapped in a bow, with a bow.
Let me read off the summaries of these episodes on IMDb. Okay. So episode 5 called 7 Minutes of Terror, right? The prior episode to what we watched last week. Yeah. The explanation is the race to land first on Mars brings together unexpected allies. That sounds quite dramatic. And it didn't really do any of that.
It didn't feel like it, but it didn't pay off. That's not true. Unexpected allies. The Russians have been fighting with the Americans the whole time.
And it's not like the Russians and Americans worked together. They were just sitting in their seats. So I feel like that's not an accurate title. But when you read it, you're like, whoa, maybe Korea is on the moon. Maybe China's there. Like, okay, this could be something. Okay, this episode that we just watched, New Eden, this is the explanation. The astronauts move quickly to build Martian bases. I would say this episode didn't have anything to do with that.
No base building, no spacewalks, nothing.
Nope.
Everything was in like a small hab room.
Yeah.
Everyone was sweating and smelling.
Yeah.
That's it.
We didn't see anything. I mean, yes, they said, this isn't working, that's not working, but there was no move quickly to build bases.
Show us. I want to see the buildings.
The next episode is called Bring It Down. And the summary is a joint mission brings about conflict between crew members. That doesn't sound interesting at all. The prior two sounded pretty good. This doesn't sound interesting at all. In fact, it kind of sounds like, hey, I know what this is going to be about. This guy's going to say, do it this way. This guy's going to say, do it my way. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Right?
I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm pretty confident they're going to get some water. Like, for example, they're going to bring back a tank of 50 liters of water or 100 liters of water into the NASA hab. The Russians are. And then they're going to put a big Russian flag on it and say, hey, you guys are not allowed to share any of this water with
our water.
This is our water now. You take your water. We don't want it. We've got our own. And then that's going to be the conflict. They're going to be like, hey, listen, what are you talking about? And he'll say, well, we bought it, so it's ours.
Great. You don't even have a container to put it in. That's our container, right?
Fine.
So take your water. We'll take our container.
Exactly. And these are all things which is, again, diplomatic issues on Earth, but the ground reality in space should be that Danielle says, hey, listen, go kick rocks, go sleep in your tents outside. We're done with hosting you guys here. And then you have like a little mutiny on there. And then all of a sudden, Ed has to come in and save the day and help because he would never willingly help the Russians. So he'll help Danielle. They take back their ship. It harkens back a little bit to, how the Americans stormed the Russian base in season 2. It'll be the same thing where the Russians because the Russians, I think, outnumber the Americans at this stage.
Well, because there's that one American who was Russian, right? The defector.
Right.
I mean, that would have been that's a pretty
what if he was a double agent the whole time?
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's still time, but still, I'm a bit disappointed.
Yeah. If we take a step back, it's interesting how quickly shows can, lose their mojo, right?
Yeah.
That you're writing and writing and writing and saying like, okay, well, this episode will be about this and this, and we'll have Kelly start a romantic relationship with this guy. And probably when you're writing it, I mean, look, we're not writers, so it's hard to point fingers, but it seems pretty compelling. But I mean, again, you and I watch a lot of TV.
This is famously, it happened with the end of Game of Thrones, right? The last couple episodes kind of tanked the entire season and series. So
okay, before we cut out, you are still watching Ms. Marvel. I have thrown in the towel, which I think indicates that I think this is a skip. Do you want to summarize what you liked, what you didn't like, and kind of how this ended?
Yeah, I think the ending was not bad at all. We find that Kamala goes to Pakistan because her grandmother calls her after she has a vision putting on the bracelet. She learns a little bit more about her backstory. We learn a little bit more about the bracelets. She comes back, and then her mom finally accepts the fact that she's a superhero. Her mom is the one who makes her the outfit. Her superhero outfit. They come back to America, and in the last episode, and they have a fight with the main bad guys, but the main bad guy isn't actually who you think it is. The main bad guy is now Damage Control, who we see Stewie from Succession, his organization.
Oh yeah.
So his underling kind of breaks off and says, "I'm going to do this because they're all dangerous people."
Oh.
And she becomes the main bad guy. And, she goes and attacks a bunch of kids. The community rallies around them. They protect the kids. Then, she ends the day. It's fine. It's all relatively inconsequential. But what they set up was the connection, and the reason I don't think there is going to be a series 2 of Ms. Marvel is because at the end of the show, mid-credits scene, and they show Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, and she shows up in Kamala's bedroom. They accidentally swap places somehow through the bracelet.
Huh.
So, and that's how the show ends. So, and then the titles, the end card says, Ms. Marvel will appear next on the Marvels, which is Captain Marvel 2 next summer. So, which is I think this was their way of transitioning her origin story into the movie without having to show her origin in the movie. Fine. So if you look at it that way, I think the show was good. It gives you a very comprehensive way of showing how Ms. Marvel becomes Ms. Marvel, why Ms. Marvel is Ms. Marvel, and more importantly, most importantly, it also sets her up not as an Inhuman, which is what the comics version of Ms. Marvel was, but we learn that Kamala is actually a mutant.
Oh, really?
Opening the door for the X-Men.
Oh, that's interesting.
When they say you have some kind of mutation in the background, you hear the X-Men theme song.
Oh, wow. You picked that up.
It was super subtle. It's because it's such an iconic theme song, and it's from the one from the cartoons of the 90s, which I
Can you hum it? Can you hum it?
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. We hear the same thing or something very similar when you see Professor X roll into screen in Doctor Strange 2. In any case, they set it up. It was
I'm going to listen to it now. Yeah.
Very classy, the way they set it up. Very subtle. I liked it. I'm not going to comment about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing that she's a mutant versus Inhuman. I know why they've done it. It's because at the time Fox owned the right for mutants. So they didn't want to introduce more mutants and give their competition more ammunition and more characters. So they made her an Inhuman. Fine. Irrelevant. The point is they've set it up for the opening of the X-Men universe, and they've set up Captain Marvel 2. Very nicely done there. The biggest takeaways, phenomenal representation of Pakistani American and maybe more importantly, Muslim Americans in Western society, and how they actually are versus how Hollywood has traditionally portrayed them as bad guys, as terrorists, as super conservative, as people who wouldn't marry anyone else. You know, all the negative stereotypes kind of get swept under the rug by this show because they're
that's kind of its legacy. That's kind of its legacy.
And this show did a really remarkably good job of that, to highlight that a Pakistani American or a Muslim American, or however you want to identify yourself as someone from that region, as someone who is Muslim, it's not, you're not all bad guys. We're not all terrorists. We're not all bad guys. We are good guys. We have faith, but even people within that faith have conflicts about that faith, and we see that with Nakia. She has some issues with the overt gender biases in that, and they kind of highlight that to say, hey, look, our religion is not perfect, but it's still our religion. And our culture is this, and, don't insult it. Don't go out of your way. In fact, we're going to kind of glorify it and promote it. I think the show did a phenomenal job of that.
That's a very good take. I have to say that's a very thoughtful and take on it.
My review on this show is a mooch, only because this show isn't targeted to me. As a Marvel fan, I loved it, but I am not a teenage girl as a Pakistani American, as a Muslim person growing up in Eastern United States. So, or even in the United States. So that culturally, it doesn't hit on those fronts. Where it hit me was on the Pakistani American or the South Asian American impact. So those things I can relate to, but the rest of it I can't, because it's not my religion, it's not my culture, it's not where we live. So in that case, that's why it's a mooch for me. But I will fully expect that for the younger generation, for men and women who are, in high school, who are Muslim or who are South Asian, this will hit a lot harder in a good way. And I think that for them, it's likely going to be a must subscribe, because generally speaking, it's rare to find this kind positive a depiction and this good a depiction. Forget about good, positive or negative, but like the show is actually quite good in that regard. I think it's rare to see that. So I think in that way, this is going to be a must subscribe. I must say, Iman Vellani, the Ms. Kamala Khan, phenomenal. I thought she did such a great job, really portrayed the enthusiasm. So I'm going to say it's definitely a mooch. If you don't have Disney Plus, get someone's password, watch it. If you have Disney Plus, I don't think you should stop everything to go watch it, but definitely watch it when, you're bored on a weekend and you want to binge a show that's not on your priority. This is definitely the one to watch.
I think that you've said it more eloquently than anyone else could have. And I agree with everything you've said, except that for me, it's a skip, but it's a skip primarily or only for the reason you mentioned, which is I'm just not at all interested in high school kids and kind of reliving some of their issues. It's just not worth my time, you know? And that's why it's a skip. All the other things that you've said, all the other things you've said are absolutely true. The cultural and religious depictions are exceptional and accurate and first rate. The tie-in with, Marvel, I think is very good and valid and worth seeing. But again, for me, this is primarily a teen angst series, and it's just not adding anything to my life. And that's why I've given it a skip. But that doesn't diminish the fact that it's very well done.
Yeah. And I think this, kudos to Disney, kudos to Marvel. The things they did weren't pandering, and they could have easily gone the pandering route in this. You want to kind of glorify a culture. It would have been very easy to do that, but I think they did the same thing they did for Moon Knight, which was to say, hey, look, let's get a showrunner in here who is Egyptian. Let's get a showrunner in Ms. Marvel's case who is South Asian. Let's get someone who understands the culture. Let's integrate the music perfectly. I think they did a good job. So that's our very, very short quickfire review on Ms. Marvel.
My friend, I appreciate that. And although it's time to go, we do have some teasers for our next episode, which is a new feature.
A new segment.
A new segment where Pete and I have taken a list of shows that we would not ordinarily watch. We've randomly assigned each other to one of them, and we have to watch 2 or 3 episodes to see whether or not it's worth watching. And we are going to preview those on our next episode.
That's right. Because otherwise, we'll end up only watching sci-fi shows and, some kind of action shows, some kind of comedies. It does you
not
a
that
disservice.
There's anything wrong with that.
Not at all.
That there's anything wrong with that.
It does the listeners a disservice because we don't want to be pigeonholed into only one genre. So the idea is that I've got a list of shows that I'm going to force Ethan to watch. Ethan's got a list of shows he's going to force me to watch. We're going to watch a minimum of 2 episodes of each show a week. And then we're going to give you our takes on whether the other person should go ahead and watch it or not.
Good luck to us. Good luck, gentlemen. Indeed.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
So please join us for that episode, and free hoodies still available. Just takes an email or a DM on Instagram.
Aloha at filmsandstuffpodcast.com or tweet at us at F&S Podcast.
Aloha means hello. Okay, everybody. The opposite of aloha. We see you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.